Hello, friends, and welcome to part 2 of session 2. And in this session, we're going to continue this quick historical walk and discover some more about our roots as Methodist. Continuing from our last session, we pick up today with the Methodist Movement. And notice this, we are not talking about the church, a Methodist church, we are talking about a movement. At least at this point. It first needs to be understood that Wesley's passionate hope was for God to use Methodists to renew the Church of England. Wesley never intended for a new church to be formed. In fact, all the members of the Methodist societies were required to attend their own local church and work for reform from within. While this mission was successful to some degree, the final outcome was not as Wesley intended. Wesley, or God through him, had started something big, but Wesley never envisioned a new church. Yet on the horizon, there were political forces at work that would change the course of the Methodist movement. And in the process, break Wesley's heart. A new church would be born. The major historical event that caused the formation of a new church was the American Revolution. That's next. The Methodist movement had spread through the Anglican Church into America. There were many followers in this new land. So when war was declared, the King of England called all the priests home, thus leaving the churches in America without leadership. And this troubled Wesley. He did not believe that politics should interfere with the work of God in this way. So, fortified by this conviction, Wesley lobbied for the bishops of the Church of England to ordain priests who would be willing to go to America and serve the people. His lobbying efforts proved to be futile. Wesley could not find a bishop who would take this political risk. So after much deliberation, Wesley decided to do this himself. He commissioned Francis Asbury and Thomas Coke to serve the church in America. We see their names next. Please note that they were not commissioned to start a new church or denomination, but only to serve the people during the midst of a war. This hope in Wesley, though, proved to be naive. The friction between the two countries was, at the time, insurmountable. Therefore, Coke and Asbury found it necessary to establish the Methodist Episcopal Church of America, breaking all official ties with England. This happened in 1789 at a conference that came to be known as the Christmas Conference in Baltimore. Wesley was never a member of the Methodist Episcopal Church. He remained loyal to the Anglican Church to the end of his life, continuing to work for reform. In time, his popularity in England grew to celebrity status. And we see signs of that all over England with statues and buildings. And his relationship with the American Church remained minimal at this time. As a result of his wishes and tireless effort, he was able to keep the Methodists in England from separating from the Anglican Church. But after his death, there was a split in England as well, and the Methodist Church of England was eventually formed. Most would say that this would have broken Wesley's heart. So now let's talk a little about the early American experience. It was in North America that Methodism first began to grow in a dramatic way. Thomas Coke soon returned to England, but Francis Asbury remained and became the spiritual leader and chief advocate of the movement in America. His contribution cannot be underestimated. Inspired by Wesley's example and teaching, Asbury and the Methodists in America set out to spread the good news of Christ across the land. Sacrificing much, Asbury and other revival preachers set out on horseback to conquer the new frontier and to organize circuits of churches. It wasn't long before these preachers came to be known as circuit riders. For fun, I took this picture of the first pastor of my church, First United Methodist Church in Conway, Arkansas. He was in a conference based in Baltimore, and from there was assigned to the Arkansas territory. The joke is that this picture was taken right after he got the news. In truth, the impact of these early Methodist circuit riders upon the American landscape was enormous. By the end of the 19th century, the Methodist Church was the largest Protestant denomination in the land. More churches, colleges, hospitals, and homes for children and the elderly were started by Methodists than by any other group. Our founders also started the first religious publishing house in America, which is still the largest church-owned publishing house in the United States. Historically, we have always been a people who understand the importance of moving out beyond the walls of the church. In fact, we have been called the great doers of Protestantism. So friends, that is some of our legacy, our history. Today we stand on big shoulders, spiritually speaking. In the scriptures, when Elijah passed the mantle of ministry to Elisha, his prayer was to receive a double portion of the spirit of Elijah. That could be our prayer. May we receive the Spirit, the grace, the vision, the love of those who have gone before us and made it possible for us to be here and to be in ministry at this time and in this place. Finally, for this session, let's turn back to Wesley for a moment, to Wesley's legacy, and to the challenge of history. John Wesley died at the age of 88 in 1791, so he lived almost the whole century. On his deathbed, Wesley sang hymns and gave blessings. His final words were, "The best of all, God is with us." Shortly after that, he passed from this life, leaving us with a powerful legacy and a message that, God willing, will not soon die. Towards the end of his life, John Wesley said this, "I am not afraid that the people called Methodist should ever cease to exist, either in Europe or America. But I am afraid lest they should only exist as a dead sect, having the form of religion without the power. And this undoubtedly will be the case unless they hold fast to the doctrine and spirit and discipline with which they first set out. That's our challenge. As United Methodists, we have a rich heritage of biblical Christianity that reaches out to a hurting and needful world with the love of Christ, which was first planted in our hearts. Today, we are called to continue this mission. So, in your time of reflection, I invite you to ponder this challenge. How are we called to continue this story today? We will hear a lot more about that in the coming sessions. So until then, many blessings.